Hello everybody, I'm Kat and I'm going to be reviewing some books today. So if you're new to my channel, what I do is instead of monthly wrap-ups, which are pretty much what many booktubers do, what I do instead is every like 4 to 6 books, I will review that batch of books. I keep up with my reviews like that. Today I have 5 books to review, which I can't believe I've already read 5 books because at this time last year, I think I've barely read 3. We're moving right along. According to Goodreads, I am on track, so I'm really excited. The 5 books I'm sharing with you today, 4 of them I really enjoyed. 2 of them are favorites of the year already. 1 of them is definitely going to be an honorable mention. I'm really excited. I haven't read this amount of good books in a while, like books that I truly am so excited to talk about. So the first novel I'm going to talk about is actually a graphic novel, and that is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. This graphic novel follows these 2 friends on their last night working at the pumpkin patch and kind of the shenanigans that they get into because it is their last night. It's their last chance to, you know, impress their coworker that they may have a crush on, and it's a whole lot of fun. I gave this book 4 stars. It was just so much fun. The graphic novel was really cute. The artwork is absolutely adorable. The only issue I had with it was that everything seemed to quickly and conveniently wrap up at the end, which seems to be a common thing with Rainbow Rowell books. I've read 3 of her young adult books and then this graphic novel, and they all seem to just quickly and conveniently wrap up at the end. Like, it builds up to the end and then the end is just a plateau. Her stories and plots aren't really for me, but this graphic novel was absolutely adorable. Like I said before, I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This novel follows this human girl who at a very young age she gets kidnapped essentially and is taken to Fairy, which is where she is raised along with her 2 sisters. Her older sister is a half fairy, half human, and her younger sister is also full-blooded human. She, more than anything, wants to become a fairy knight, despite the fact that she's human, and so she really wants to impress the fairies and show them that she's got what it takes. The main character's name is Jude. I realize I left that out. Let me get into this, because this book has been pretty hyped up. This whole series has been really hyped up, not just this particular book. I gave it 4 stars. I'm really excited to continue on, but there are a few things I want to talk about. At the time I read it, I was debating giving it 3.5 stars, but ultimately I decided with 4. I've decided that books with a lot of action just aren't really it for me. It's the same with films. Like, I'm not a big action person, and the issue with this book is that it's so repetitive. It's just a constant cycle of Jude going to school, Jude training, Jude going to sleep, and it doesn't end. Now, the romance in this novel was something I didn't know I needed. Like, not the romance that happens like throughout the novel, like the stuff that happens at the end. People who've read the book, you get me. I didn't know I needed it, but when I read it, apparently I did. And that's what gave this book like all the power, and I was like, I'm giving it 4 stars. It's gonna be an honorable mention. You know, people say the second book is even better, so I'm really hyped to read that. So the next book I read is one that's very popular on BookTube right now, partly because the movie just came out like 2 months ago, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This book follows 4 sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, as they live life in the mid to late 1800s in America. I mean, if you don't really know what the book is about, like, just watch that Friends episode where Joey reads it, alright? Like, you'll get the gist. I really loved my time reading this novel. It was just so perfect in every way, and the audiobook with Laura Dern is fantastic. I mainly read this through that audiobook, and it was so well done. It has a full cast, it has sound effects and everything. That audiobook was so addicting. I was like doing my homework, listening to it. I was falling asleep listening to it. I could not stop listening to it. I loved it. Louisa May Alcott's writing was so simple and so beautiful, and I loved the relationship between the sisters. I think that's the true love story in this novel, is not so much who they pair off with, but the love that they have for each other. I loved it. The movie, the new one, is phenomenal. It's a really faithful adaptation, but if you're reading it for class, read the book. I gave this 5 stars. It's a favorite of the year. The next novel I read was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Again, it's another classic. I'm not gonna give you a synopsis. I gave gave it 5 stars. This book is beautifully written. I cry thinking of some of the writing in it. I actually went through and I highlighted certain quotes. Oh, can I show you some quotes? Well, I highlighted certain quotes and stuff. The writing is everything. I love the writing. I don't really know what else to say. I've anticipated reading this classic for years and it exceeded my expectations. I adored it. 5 stars. Love it. Fantastic. Roaring 20s. Great stuff. And finally, the last novel I'm going to talk about is one I briefly mentioned in my Contemporary-a-thon TBR, and that is Scarlet Epstein Hates It Here by Anna Breslau. This novel is about a girl whose favorite TV show gets canceled, and in real life she's dealing with a lot of stuff, so she decides to write fan fiction inspired by her real life that's set in the world of that TV show. I did not finish this book. I stopped about 29% in. Let me pull up what I wrote in my notes, aka my Goodreads review. You should follow my Goodreads because then you can see when I post the review, because I just basically reiterate what I write there in here. So links down below if you want to check it out. So this book was not it for me. I really disliked the main character's voice. She acted really bratty despite living in a situation where one should not act bratty. Her internal monologue was like nails on a chalkboard. I just, reading it just was not it. And a lot of the references in this novel did not age well. And this book was written in 2016. I just read books that were written like 100 years ago and 150 years ago, and they aged better than a book that was written 4 years ago. I didn't care about the other characters. I only read a little bit of the fan fiction she begins to write, and it was weird, and not in a good way. Not like weird, oh my god, this is cool. This was weird and like, what? Why? Who? This book really felt like an adult was trying to write to teenagers, and it felt really condescending. I'm not picking this up again in the future, and that makes me really disappointed because this book has been on my TBR for years, I think since it came out, and it was just very disappointing. That is it for my brief little book review slash wrap up thing. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books or if you plan to, because I would love to know. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post videos on Thursdays, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!